fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Uncharted Media Podcast. This is episode 30, and boy, do we have a stacked show for you guys today. Good grief. But before we get into any of the news or the discussion, Josh, how you doing tonight?
I'm great, man. I've had a week, but we're here and we're ready to rock.
Yeah, man. Let's just get right into this because there is so much I'm sure we have to discuss today. First of all, some trailer came out since the last time we talked. And I'm not going to lie, it's an okay trailer.
Oh, yeah? Which trailer are you talking about there, buddy?
I'm talking, of course, about Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Now, let me preface this by saying, I knew this was coming. I watched the whole Episode 9 panel leading up to the trailer. The panel kind of sucked, I'll be honest. They really said nothing during that panel. Like, absolutely nothing. I get being tight-lipped, but you could at least give your audience some clues. Everyone was just there kind of more or less to be like, okay, when are we getting the trailer? We got the trailer. I think it's an okay trailer. Not nearly as good as I was hoping, or it should have been. But I have more thoughts that we can expound upon in a little bit. What did you think of The Rise of Skywalker? First of all, what do you think of the title? And then what did you think of the trailer, Josh?
First of all, if you were trying to hide who Rey's parents are, that's apparently out the window because all hints and clues, including the name of the movie now, are pointing towards that Rey is a Skywalker. So thanks, appreciate that, guys. Way to keep a mystery. But I mean, to be fair, everyone was kind of like, well, who else would she be? Second of all, this played to me very much like a teaser, and it did enough to get the fans' feet wet. You know what I mean? Like, just to kind of give us a peek at what we should be expecting a little bit. And to be fair, like, this looks like it has some good potential as far as a Star Wars film goes. Granted, so did Last Jedi.
Which I love, by the way.
Yes, I agree. As do I. But there's a majority of people out there that think Last Jedi is bad, which I don't understand. Anyway,
I think the biggest problem the Rise of Skywalker will face is one that we knew it was gonna have, and you can absolutely tell right off the bat with this trailer, is you can tell it's gonna retcon stuff that Last Jedi retconned about Force Awakens. You could tell this whole new trilogy is made by different people and it's not very cohesive. Like, they're almost abandoning every story aspect, it seems like, from Last Jedi, and just kind of, you could just go from Force Awakens to The Rise of Skywalker, that's fine. And it's more an indictment on how Kathleen Kennedy runs Lucasfilm, of just, you have creative freedom until I don't like your creative freedom and I will fire you with 2 weeks left type of thing.
Yeah, basically.
I disagree, though, with the title giving away anything. I think it's so obvious that Rey is a Skywalker that it becomes she's not a Skywalker. Like, it's so blatantly a spoiler that I don't think it is a spoiler. They just want you to think it is.
Okay, I see where you're coming from that.
Like, maybe Skywalker is the name of the new Force users, somewhere in between, some gray Jedi.
Okay, I can see that. I will say, and you and I have kind of talked about this, that I really enjoy that scene with Rey which is the obvious Kylo TIE fighter.
Yes, I don't know what this one's called. It was TIE Silencing, the last one. I love Kylo ships, but so Josh and I have talked about this off mic, but the first time I saw this trailer, I had a theory right off the bat. I think Kylo and Rey are working together in this scene. I don't think they're fighting, because go back and watch the trailer. She does that awesome backflip thing. It doesn't look like she's attacking the TIE fighter. It looks like she's doing a backflip to hop onto it to catch a ride because she doesn't look like she's attacking it. Also, if the TIE fighter was attacking her, don't you think it would have started shooting at her?
That would be the thought process, wouldn't it?
Yes. And we assume it's Kylo Ren, but we don't actually see who's piloting the ship. We just see the black gloved hands, which I called it in my How Episode 9 Could Work video way back when, last May, that Kylo would have a new mask or reforge his old one, and he would just have a mask again. And the trailer shows that he will, and I'm so glad about that.
Yeah, because I really enjoyed his mask.
Same. It's more of a character type thing, though, for me, of it's symbolic. All masks in Star Wars are symbolic of something.
Absolutely. And it just, bad guys have masks. The bad guys, that's just how it works.
Yeah. The other big takeaway, obviously, I thought this trailer was just okay. If it wasn't a Star Wars trailer, I don't think people would be talking about it as much because I think it's just a fine trailer until no one's truly gone forever.
Yeah.
And like I don't know about you, but I had to do a double take of like, wait, was that a laugh? Who I thought it was? Rewind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's who I thought it was. And sure enough, for those of you who were watching the Star Wars Celebration panel when they debuted this trailer, as soon as the trailer was done, they brought the house lights back up, and who's on stage but Ian McDermott, the guy who plays Emperor Palpatine, and he does in his best Palpatine voice, roll it again. So if there's any doubt, yes, Palpatine is back. I'm conflicted about this.
I don't see, because you and I had talked about this off mic when it debuted. I also have mixed feelings, and part of it's because for me, you can't retcon everything in the past, previous movie. You just can't. It just doesn't make story sense to do so. Okay, what happened in the last movie happened. You can only go from there, right? So if that's the case, then the feuding between Kylo and Rey has to continue. That has to be the main good versus evil. Now, you can still have other evils, in my opinion, that try to either tempt Rey or Kylo is looking for some more guidance as far as the ways of the Sith.
I do believe I don't want to go back to it because it's just an elaborate fan theory is essentially what it is. But in my How Episode 9 video could work, Kylo's looking for a Sith holocron. I could absolutely still see that happening.
Absolutely.
I don't think I'm that far off the mark, which I'd be totally down if I'm right about some things. I was way off on Last Jedi, but I might be more on the mark than I think this time around. Yeah, I'll be very curious about Palpatine. I'm on the fence. I enjoy seeing all the memes about Palpatine coming back, but at the same time, in the original stuff, the original expanded universe stuff before it became uncanon, there's like Palpatine clones, and like he was able to put his spirit back into clones. That all sounds so ridiculously stupid to me and just kind of shoehorn something back into the universe, and I really hope we don't go down that road. I have faith enough in J.J. Abrams to not do that, but I do have some cause for concern of, really? Palpatine? And I don't blame J.J. for that. I blame the studio for not having this feels like they didn't have a clear end goal, an end game, if you will, of where the story was going to end up. It was like, all right, director, don't really worry about talking to the previous director about where they're going to take the story. You do your own thing. Oh, that didn't work out too well? Original director, you do your thing. And JJ's probably just going, Palpatine then, I guess?
Yeah, because now with Snoke gone, what do you do? Because Kylo's he's not big, he's good, don't get me wrong, but he's not big enough quite yet to be the big baddie, if you know what I mean.
Yes. Plus, I know some people are saying Kylo's beyond redemption because he killed his dad, but I still think Kylo ends the Rise of Skywalker as a hero, if nothing else. Like, I don't think he'll survive, but I think he ends up like his grandfather, sacrifices himself for the greater good and dies a hero, and ultimately finds redemption in that. I think that's more of his journey than out-and-out bad guy, and that's why they're bringing Palpatine back. But more than anything, this trailer just brings up questions and leaves me scratching my head. Like, not Nate. I'm super excited, like an Endgame trailer, which we'll get to in a little bit here, but more just, just curious more than anything else.
Yeah, I agree. Like both of us, I think I even messaged you. I have more questions than answers, and I don't know if that's a good thing quite yet.
Yeah, I remember the first Force Awakens teaser. That got me excited right off the bat because they had some interesting visuals, and then they capped it off with that great Millennium Falcon doing a barrel roll at the end with the music and everything else. That felt like Star Wars. That was great. I'm not saying this doesn't feel like Star Wars. It, to be honest, at times felt like an Uncharted trailer because, and I put this on Facebook, holy crap, does Poe Dameron look like Nathan Drake from Uncharted 3?
Well, if they're going to go find holocrons, which is a theory I think both of us have, then yeah, why not?
The most encouraging thing I got out of the panel, one of the few bits of information that they did share from the panel, thanks for being so secretive, guys, is it seems like the main squad will be together for the whole time this time around, which I'm much more okay with. I want them together as opposed to, here's the 3 separate journeys that the 3 separate characters are on. Here's Poe's journey, here's Finn's journey, and here's Rey's journey. I would much rather them be together, because they really haven't been this entire trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this trailer, as ho-hum as it wasn't the only big piece of news that came out of Star Wars Celebration. The other one that really is actually probably getting more buzz with the hardcore Star Wars fans than The Rise of Skywalker. Rise of Skywalker, I think, is more of general excitement. This one is for the hardcore fans, and that is The Mandalorian, the live-action Star Wars show coming to Disney+. Now, they had a teaser. Unfortunately, it was just for those in attendance at Star Wars Celebration. However, we did get some still shots of the show, like 4 or 5 pictures and kind of a rundown of what the show will be like. So it'll take place 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and will be very similar to a Western in space of just a lone Mandalorian bounty hunter. And I'm just going, yes, this sounds so fantastic.
Oh, that's exactly what I think you and I discussed was either you do, you go back to the Mandalorian Wars, you do some kind of adventure with like OG Boba Fett before the original trilogy, or you just do something completely different.
And it sounds like they're doing something completely different. Mm-hmm. And I'm so okay with that. Indeed. And it's a time frame that I want more of. For some reason, lately, Lucasfilm has just had this attachment to the period between episodes 3 and 4. You've got original 2D animated Clone Wars, the Clone Wars TV show, Rogue One, Solo. There's talk of that Obi-Wan movie that I still won't let go. There's that new kid show, Resistance takes place before Force Awakens. But they keep making more and more stuff between episodes 3 and 4. And I'm like, there's a 30-year gap between episodes 6 and 7. Can we please explore that range if we're going to be somewhere in the Skywalker timeline? I want to go Old Republic, which is rumored to be happening soon. But I want stuff between 6 and 7. And this is in that timeline. And I'm so much more down with that than in between 3 and 4. And I like that it seems like it's just going to be focusing on one non-Force sensitive individual.
Yeah, because we don't get that a lot. If Star Wars in general is usually almost always about the Force and about Jedi, minus maybe Solo, but even then, that's still there. Yes,
there's still some influence there. I have my issues with Solo, but we've talked ad nauseum about that. The Mandalorian will be a part of the Disney streaming service, which that is a whole big discussion that we're going to get into in a couple minutes here. That's going to be launching day one. And holy crap, if I wasn't motivated to buy Disney Plus already, some of the announcement that they've made on top of this Mandalorian announcement, Disney Plus is going to take all my money. I'm just positive. And Mandalorian, I am so hyped for this show when it eventually comes out.
Absolutely. And I think it's something that is the perfect medium between of Star Wars stuff that we need right now. Because I think I also saw a post that they're going to take a break from Star Wars things for a little bit.
Yeah, and not give me my Obi-Wan movie.
Hey, it doesn't mean that it's out of the question. It just means they're going to take a break, which I appreciate, because that's going to give them time to kind of get things situated and maybe create a hierarchy of people that is, how do I say this?
Organized.
Yeah, basically.
I think they're taking a break from the saga films. I had heard talks that they might be doing Old Republic movies, which I'd be much more okay with because it's a completely different timeline. It isn't going to cross over with the established canon already.
Yeah,
it's like starting from scratch.
And it'd be something fresh.
Yes, it's something new and exciting, and I'd be very much okay with that.
Absolutely.
So our main discussion tonight is our continued look into the MCU getting ready for Avengers Endgame next week. Oh man, I can't believe it's next week. And we're going to be talking about Phase 2. Now, I say that because what appears to be the final Avengers Endgame trailer came out on Tuesday. And again, not a lot is shown in this trailer, but to me, it is the best trailer we've gotten so far. It is essentially a fast 2-minute recap of everything that's happened in the MCU so far in terms of the characters we've met, the critical events, and what's led us to this point. And I'm not going to lie, it hit me in the feels, man.
Oh, yeah. So I remember you saying something about it, and then me, being like, all right, I need a mental note, make sure to go look at the trailer, whatever. And I was scanning through Facebook. I think I was on my way to work or something like that, and you had posted it, and I was like, ooh. And honestly, at first, I thought it was fan-made. I thought some fan had just put all this stuff together because Incredible Hulk is included in it.
Okay, I have issues with that one.
I mean, I do too, but do you
know what issue I have with it, though?
Besides the actors?
So they show like a quick little montage of each movie. They show Iron Man and then Incredible Hulk. But the Hulk that they use is the Hulk from Avengers. It's not Mark Ruff. It's not Edward Norton's Hulk.
That's kind of
We said it last week. They want you to forget about that movie.
They really do. It's hilarious. Regardless, though, this quick recap leading all the way up to Endgame. It hit me in the feels, and it really, and I think I commented on the video too, it gave you this actual physical scope of how big this universe is and how long we've been coming to this end game.
I think I forget at times just how intricate this story has been and how much it's been built up. Just little things that they've said, even in Iron Man or Captain America, that I'm like, that's probably going to pay off next week.
Oh, absolutely.
And just like, I guess I'm really attached to these characters. Like, I love all the most all the Marvel movies. But I'm just like, I never really thought I was that attached to them. Like, I grew up with Harry Potter, so I'm naturally attached to those characters. I guess it's more or less the same thing of like, yeah, I'm going to be really sad to see some of these characters go, but I'm excited to see what Endgame brings. I'm excited to see, it's like the last Harry Potter movie. I'm excited to see what the ending brings, except unlike Harry Potter, I don't know how this ends. I'll celebrate if Iron Man dies, as I have wanted him to die for many a year. But I genuinely think this time, I've been wanting Captain America to die for several films now. That is no secret. I think it just makes sense for his character. It's the right way for him to go out, is to go out on his back. If he does, and I feel pretty confident that he does, I'm going to be bawling like a baby, I think. Just because rewatching this trailer that they showed, I've really grown to love these characters and how they've been handled in the MCU. And sometimes I think we take it for granted how much work has gone into the MCU. I know you haven't liked all the movies. I haven't liked all the movies. But there's no denying you put in 22 films worth of effort, and almost all of them are C or above in quality. There's not a single awful fan-forstic level movie in the MCU. All of them are at least okay to fantastic. And over time, it's just, wow. I don't think we'll ever see something like this again. And so it was nice to see this trailer really put in perspective of, this is something special, and it all ends next week.
Yeah.
Or does it?
It doesn't. No. This end game is not the end. It's the ending of this first storyline.
It's the end of the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't go that far. I would say that it's the ending of this story, and it should set up the next story as well.
Just like wrestling, it just keeps going on. They've said they haven't really talked about what stories are called until now, which makes me think they've thought about more arcs. This one's called the Infinity Saga. So clearly they're thinking other sagas down the line, whether that's Secret War Saga or the Cosmic Saga with Galactus. Clearly, they've been building this movie up for 22 movies to get to this point. I think we're going to get more of these long builds with other smaller films leading into it, and I'm down for that. I think this is the end of the MCU that we know it, but an introduction to an even larger MCU going forward.
Absolutely.
Now, going from something massive and huge like Avengers Endgame to something a little more smaller and intimate, but still no less quality, is Shazam. Probably, well, not even probably. I know for a fact it is my favorite superhero movie of 2019 so far. And as I predicted at the beginning of the year with our predictions podcast, love it way better than Captain Marvel. I don't know if it's my favorite movie of the year just yet, but I love Shazam. It has now been officially greenlit for a sequel. Yes, please.
So I still haven't seen Shazam, but it's really funny actually, because I think everybody that I know has seen it except me, and everybody, even like my friends who are very critical of DC movies, they enjoyed the crap out of that movie.
It's because it's phenomenal. I think they're rushing it into production so soon is because they have a lot of kid actors and a lot of child actors involved with Shazam, and they don't really want to miss that window of age. Yeah. Like with kid actors, you want to start it as quick as possible, or else you have Harry Potter syndrome of, the first two movies where they look like kids, and then all of a sudden they show up for the third movie, and they look 4 years older.
Yep.
That being said, I think this is happening before Aquaman 2. I think a lot of DC movies are coming out before Aquaman 2. At least that's happening. Without dipping into spoilers for Josh, they set some things up for Shazam 2. And again, without spoilers, I don't think it'll be Black Adam. I think the success of Shazam at the box office opens the door for a Black Adam movie to happen sooner. But I don't necessarily think Black Adam will be the villain for a Shazam 2. I could see maybe for Shazam 3. Because it's no secret, Shazam does not have the deepest of villain rosters.
No, and part of that is just because he's really just almost always been a part of the JLA.
It's also primarily because for a long time there he was in legal trouble, but when he was first created, it was World War II, I believe. And so a lot of his villains were ones that don't necessarily translate to nowadays. Like, I feel like he had a villain that was like Captain Nazi. Yeah, good luck with that one nowadays. Like, his was very indicative of its time.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, at this point in time, like, I think Black Adam is almost the only other direction you can kind of go without just putting him into JLA and keeping him there.
And again, without spoiling anything for Josh, even though I should because it's been out for 2 weeks, it is clearly established without outright stating so that Black Adam does exist in this universe without there's hints, obviously, for those that know the comics, that Black Adam is what is or was a thing in this universe. So I think with Shazam doing as well as it is in the box office, I think that'll speed up the progress. So I would think Shazam 2 they're getting everyone back. The director, I believe, is signed on to come back. The scriptwriter's coming back. So look for this one to be fast-tracked very soon and probably go into production next year.
Absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I think with the success of Aquaman and Shazam, I think DC is going to ramp up, and because I think they have found their stride, and they're getting ready to unleash truly what the DC universe is going to be.
All it took was some high-ranking people not being in their position anymore.
It's like we said that, and it was the issue all along. How interesting.
Well, there's 2 people to blame, but that's a whole other issue for another day. Now, another interesting news topic that came across our desk, if we had desks, another DC one, regards to Titans, the show that we love talking about because it's criminally underrated. And so one of the main threads through Titans Season 1 was we saw Bruce Wayne in silhouette, but we never saw him because they never cast him. They never really got a clear shot of Batman just because they never had an actor. Well, Batman will be a part of Season 2 of Titans, and we now have our actor. Game of Thrones is Ian Glenn. For those of you who don't know which Game of Thrones character that is, because there's so many nameless ones, it's Captain Friendzone, that one that had a thing for Daenerys, and she's like, dude, you're old and gross, so no.
Yeah. Honestly, so first of all, I thought they handled them not having an actor for Bruce / Batman very elegantly.
Yes, they don't overexpose Bruce at all.
Oh, exactly. And at no point were you like, wait, who do they have playing him? Because it doesn't matter. And that was the other thing. I didn't feel like I needed to have Bruce around because he wasn't who I was interested in as far as the story went. As far as the casting goes, I'm very down with this. Especially, I'm just picturing the way that he acts and picturing him paired up with Dick in Titans. And
especially this Dick Grayson.
Yeah, this particular Dick Grayson. And I'm super down. On paper, this sounds like a fantastic idea.
Yeah, I like that this actor's a bit older because while he wasn't my first pick, primarily just because I even forgot about him, I like that he looks older, more gruff, because I kind of get a Batman Beyond vibe from him, like a grumpy old man Batman who just stopped caring a long time ago and is more embracing that angry side of him, like the Snyder Batman. And I'm much more okay with that because that feeds into the character of Dick Grayson that we've seen on Titans and his journey that he's going on. So it would make sense if Batman is real troubled, and that's what has made Dick Grayson the way he is, or what has made, spoiler, Jason Todd, who's on the show as well, it's made him how he is. So I think this guy's great casting. I'll be curious to see how much they use him on Titan Season 2, because the show is not about Batman. Batman is a key supporting character, the story of Dick Grayson. And if you're truly going to turn him into Nightwing in Season 2, which is, I firmly believe, is what his arc is, you need Batman in there in some capacity. But Titan Season 2, they've like doubled their cast size. It's ridiculous.
Well, they can afford to now, because now they're like, okay, people are kind of getting behind the show. Now we can actually tell as big of a story as we're wanting to.
Yes. And I just hope the Nightwing suit is good. That's all I care about.
Look, man, as soon as I think Doom Patrol, because I have to talk about Doom Patrol when this in this discussion, for a very particular reason. I think Doom Patrol is going to be done with one season, because I think Doom Patrol is going to end with him meeting somebody from the Titans.
Cyborg, you mean?
Yeah. Who did I say?
Nobody.
Oh, okay, sorry. No, I think Cyborg is going to end. It's going to end with him meeting somebody from the Titans, and so they can transition him into there.
Yeah. So yeah, Titans roster season 2 rise is going to look very different. Season 1 you had Nightwing, not even Nightwing. He was still it was Robin, Raven, quote unquote Starfire. It's still not quite Starfire to me. Sometimes Beast Boy. He wasn't really a big presence, and that was about it. Next season we're supposedly adding Superboy and Crypto. Yay, Crypto.
Yeah.
Probably Cyborg after Doom Patrol. Jericho, at least for a little bit. If you know the Judas Contract storyline, probably won't be a full season thing. And probably Robin turning into Nightwing. So the show is really shaping up to be a great season 2.
Absolutely. And honestly, the season 1 has been so overtaken with, and it needs to be, the story needs to be told with Nightwing's arc, that it has been hard to get behind Starfire. But there are hints and little tidbits here and there of who Starfire is. And we're getting there. It's going to take a little bit of a process for her, because I do like the bump on the head kind of story that they're telling with her.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see the direction they take her for season 2. This is another interesting, somewhat DC related. So for a lot of years, Mark Hamill was the voice of the Joker, and he's a prolific voice actor. Well, Mark Hamill got a new gig recently as the voice of Chucky in the new Child's Play remake. Now we have our first official look at Chucky in the new Child's Play, like actually what the doll is going to look like. Well, could be worse, I guess.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Thank you, appreciate it. I don't want this. Look, I'm not a Chucky fan, but like
you were the one defending this movie, man.
I know, but like, here's the thing. At no point does that doll make me nervous.
I think that's the point.
I know, and you know what? Maybe
it's the argument Nostalgia Critic had with It, of which one's scarier, the Tim Curry clown or the Alexander Skarsgård one from the new It, and he claimed it was the original because that one starts off being an actual clown that kids would probably gravitate towards. So it's the same thing with this doll. Kids will buy this doll because it is non-threatening. And then when everything goes to crap, then it makes sense why it's terrifying.
I guess. I'm down. I think with that perspective, sure. And then you have Mark Hamill's voice coming out of it. I can see how that would be terrifying. I've never been that big of a Chucky fan. I think you and I agree that taking away the voodoo aspect is a little disappointing, because that was kind of one of the things that set it apart, and made it less. What is it? Toy Soldiers or whatever the movie's called.
I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like Toy Soldiers or tiny
small soldiers.
Small soldiers.
I will definitely be passing on this one, and that's probably because I don't care about the Chucky movies. I haven't seen any of them, which is, I know, odd for the horror connoisseur that I try to be. This doll does nothing for me. Like, when I saw the new Michael Myers mask for the new Halloween, I was like, yes, this seems right. This Chucky just, I don't know. I've never been scared of Chucky, just like I've never been scared of Leprechaun. This does nothing for me. I don't care. I will be passing. That being said, it's still news that I feel like we need to cover on this show.
It is what it is. I know, and you can give me all the crap you want. I've been trying to be as positive as I can about this, because I think in today's day and age, Chucky does have the potential to be absolutely terrifying. But we'll see.
Yeah. In literally any other time of the year, this would be our main discussion. However, we are trying to get through all of the Marvel-related content in time for Endgame, so we're still going to be talking about this as a news topic. But holy crap, there's a lot to discuss here. Disney Plus, I don't know why, but Disney just dropped a bunch of news on this, and I had to get an extra, I've seen some good pictures on Twitter and everywhere else, so I have a picture here that I'm going to go through some of the main highlights for Disney Plus that Disney just decided to drop out of nowhere. So Disney Plus will be coming November 12th, and it'll cost $6.99 a month, or $69.99 for the whole year, which is like $5.50 a month, which is a ridiculous deal. That is crazy good. That's almost like half the price of Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
It will have offline download for all content, which is ridiculous. And we got a rundown of some of the programs that'll be on here. Here's some of the things that I have in my notes. All 30 seasons of The Simpsons will be on Disney Plus at launch and will be the exclusive home of The Simpsons. The Mandalorian we talked about earlier will be there on day one of the launch. A live-action Lady and the Tramp movie will be there at launch. We'll be getting a Falcon and Winter Soldier series within the first year of launch with Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan, the original MCU actors, reprising their role. We'll be getting a new animated Phineas and Ferb movie. We'll be getting a Scarlet Witch and Vision TV series called WandaVision, which is the worst name for a TV series ever. Alan Tudyk will be coming back to voice K2SO in the Cassian Andor Star Wars series.
Interesting.
Marvel will be doing an animated series called What If, based on the comic storyline, basically an alternate universe each episode, with the first episode being if Peggy Carter became the super soldier instead of Steve Rogers.
Ooh.
Also, something else I completely forgot when Disney bought 20th Century Fox is they also acquired the rights to National Geographic. So they will be running a nature documentary called The World According to Jeff Goldblum. So picture a nature documentary.
Oh my gosh, yes!
A nature documentary voiced by Jeff Goldblum. And the thing that gets me the most excited we'll be getting 5,000 episodes of Disney Channel content and 100 Disney Channel original movies will stream at launch and in HD.
Bro, this, first of all, my first comment is always, when did Disney acquire the rights to Simpsons? But
20th Century Fox.
That is neither here nor there, because the story has been and will continue to be that Disney is going all in on this, man. They are.
Yeah. If this was a fight between Netflix, they came out with a massive haymaker right to the chin of Netflix.
And honestly, if we're honest, it's not going to take much to beat Netflix these days. But outside of Netflix's original content, they've kind of watered down their other content quite a bit. But with this is going to be incredible.
Yeah. So what of all those, the massive amount of news dump that I just dumped out there, and that's just some of it. I'm sure I'm missing other big pieces of news. Of all of those, what are you most excited for?
Mandalorian. I like that the live action is just going to be there. And I feel like this is the first we've heard of it. I might be wrong on that. The live action Lady and the Tramp.
Yeah, it's been announced. It's just haven't really talked about it a whole lot.
I know you and I have kind of briefly talked about the What If series off mic. That could potentially be really interesting. I think the Falcon and Winter Soldier could be really interesting as well.
Now, I have a theory about that one.
Yeah, but honestly, at the end of the day, the 500 episodes of Disney Channel content and 100 Disney Channel...
No. Not 500 episodes.
Oh, 5,000, sorry.
5,000 episodes of Disney Channel content.
Which means that, that begs the question, I want a show list. I want to know what all shows they're bringing there is going to be on there, because 5,000 is easily just the shows they did in the early 2000s.
Oh gosh, I would pay the $6.99 a month. I know I already am, but if you told me day one, hey Nathan, we're gonna have Buzz Lightyear of Star Command the entire series.
Oof. I didn't even Buzz and Tarzan because Tarzan
Buzz
didn't
Lightyear,
only.
Tarzan,
Oh,
Aladdin, Timon and Pumbaa,
man.
Goof Troop,
Or
or
what was it? Dave the Barbarian.
Dave the Barbarian, Phil of the
Oh my
Future.
gosh. There's so much that would be fantastic if they had on there because there's a lot of that stuff you can't find anywhere.
Exactly, and Disney has said that anything that's in the Disney vault, the vault more or less is open now and will stay open. So any Disney movie, except for maybe Song of the South, any Disney movie will be available on this. And the thing I'm most excited for, not only will it be available, it'll be available for offline download. So you won't have to have an internet connection to watch stuff. So if you're going on a flight, you can download Disney stuff ahead of time to watch on your flight or when you don't have an internet connection.
Exactly.
A lot of places already do this. Netflix has it in a limited capacity. For Disney to say, we're going to have it for everything, that's nuts. Also, something I missed in the notes earlier is Disney has said as soon as the app launches, anytime a Disney movie comes on digital or Blu-ray, that movie will be available on the streaming service that same day. So buy Blu-rays, buying digital. If you have Disney streaming service, you got the movie right there.
Yeah,
It's going to launch
which
with Captain
honestly,
Marvel also day one. I didn't like Captain Marvel, but that's pretty impressive.
yeah. I mean, all things considered, I mean, DVDs are kind of antiquated anyway. In today's day and age, it's hard to actually find a decent DVD player or Blu-ray player that's not just automatically in like a gaming system or something. So it's, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if like, this is the beginning of a move towards less DVDs, and then people will collect DVDs as mementos and stuff like that.
Already do, man.
I know you do. I don't have the space for them, so.
Yeah, I think for me, the things I'm most interested in are obviously the live-action Marvel stuff. I think Falcon and Winter Soldier is the code name, like how Return of the Jedi was Blue Harvest. I think this is the code name and not the finished name. I think the show is actually going to be called Captain America and the Falcon.
I can see that.
Bucky as Captain America.
Yeah, no, I can totally see that.
And they can't say that or else that's a spoiler for Endgame. Just
exactly.
like I think WandaVision could also be a code name for something else.
Oh, it is. It better be a code name because what even is that?
Yeah, that's a horrible name if they stick with it. And we talked about it. The Mandalorian should be great. Looking for the TV shows. Something not nearly enough people are talking about. Guys, we're getting a new Phineas and Ferb movie. Yes, please.
The TV show and really all of the movies have been spot on. So like it's really nothing on this.
Get every Phineas and Ferb episode too.
Exactly. Really nothing on this list on what they've been announcing has been. Don't think I've seen something yet that has made me go, oh, okay. Well, I guess that's sure. Why not? Because I mean, I think we're all starting to realize, how much Disney has played into our lives in general.
My only question with this is they keep announcing content. I genuinely don't know what I'm going to watch first. Because, yes, I could watch these Marvel shows, or I could watch The Mandalorian, or I could watch the cartoons that I grew up watching. Oh gosh, I hadn't even thought about this. If they have House of Mouse, I'm not leaving the house.
Oh, dude, if we're honest, and I think that's part of kind of the draw. And it's why I don't think that it's why I think they're okay with doing $7 a month because they know everybody's going to get it. Especially with all the stuff they're announcing for it, because you could, if as much content is going to be on here as they are saying is going to be on here, you could go the entire year after launch and not have seen everything on the service.
Yeah, and I guarantee you the price will go up, but no matter how high they go, up until maybe $25, I think the service is absolutely worth it. It seems like not only are they delivering us a lot of quantity of content, they're giving us quality of content too. It sounds like great stuff. Whether it is those classic things that we grew up on, or new original programming, or heck, documentaries. I'll watch the crap out of a Jeff Goldblum narrated documentary. They've also said that they're going to have a multi-part documentary on the Imagineering team, which is essentially the creative team behind the parks. That sounds fascinating. I love the Imagineering team. I like those type of documentaries. I like Netflix documentaries. So if Disney can compete with the documentary game and slowly also integrate the Fox properties, you're starting with 30 seasons. I've never watched Simpsons, never cared. But you got to admit, 30 seasons of a show on launch, and it's the exclusive home of that? That's impressive.
Yeah. Hey, wasn't Scrubs on Fox?
For at least a little bit. I remember Scrubs had a troubled tenure. It was like on Fox for like maybe season 9, and then it was on ABC. It's on Hulu now, which I've heard rumor of like bundles that you can do like this with Hulu or this with ESPN Go. I haven't looked into that a whole lot yet.
Yeah, but I mean, really, like in today's day and age, you almost don't even need Netflix, especially with Disney coming out. You can do Hulu and Disney on the basic level and literally have access to so much content.
Yeah, once they introduce those Fox, they haven't announced a whole lot of Fox things on the Disney Plus app, but once they do, all your Alien movies, all your Predator movies.
It just opens the doors wide open, and there's gonna be so much content, and I don't know if anybody's ready for it.
Yeah, honestly, if you could sum up Disney Plus coming after Netflix in a single GIF, it's probably that one of Henry Cavill cocking his arms in Mission Impossible.
I mean, I was gonna go with the vine of the guy who's trying to throw the umbrella at the umbrella that's flying down the beach.
Yep.
No. Yep.
Yeah.
Run. Da, 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 da.
Yeah. Netflix is the day after Disney Plus made all these announcements. Netflix's stocks dropped. So, yeah, it's a war coming, and I'm very interested to see how Netflix will respond to this. It's going to be interesting.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And that's always been my issue with Netflix has been the content. Like they really have their original content is great. You know, it sometimes it can be hit or miss, but generally speaking, it's good stuff. But then you've taken away the Marvel shows. Okay, well, that's a reason to not have Netflix now. There's no Disney stuff on there anymore. A lot of the horror section is all the B-level stuff. So it's like, what's the point?
Yeah, I think that's the one main area where Disney's going to be lacking for a little bit for Disney Plus, just because that's not their department, will be horror. I'll be curious to see how they add to that department, because it's one that I care deeply about. So I'll be curious to see what Disney does with it. That being said, Disney's not messing around. They don't like to come in second place for anything. They want to win this streaming battle.
They really do. And you know what? I'm not going to be surprised, but if there's a company that's going to win the streaming battle, it's going to be Disney.
Oh, absolutely. And that'll about cover it for movie news. However, we're going to move on now to our discussion. Last week we talked Marvel Phase 1 movies, so Iron Man leading up to Avengers. This week, we're doing Iron Man 3 through Ant-Man. Yes, there's an Avengers movie in there, but it's weird. Phase 2 ends with Ant-Man. Josh can't be here for the discussion due to some technical issues on his end, but that's totally fine. We have a great replacement. Welcome back, Joe. How you doing tonight? And thanks again for filling in so late in the game. I'm
doing good, Nate. It's good. It's good to be back. I didn't expect to be back so soon, but I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're back. I'm glad we can talk some Marvel with you, because you and I always talked about Marvel all the time. I'm glad we were able to get together. Let's talk Phase 2, which to me is the most interesting of all the phases of when it hits, it really hits. And when it misses, it really misses. Every single movie in this phase to me is either excellent or one of the weaker Marvel films.
Right.
So, starting us off for Phase 2, we've got Iron Man 3. So, before I go into it, Joe, what are your overall thoughts on Iron Man 3?
I mean, Iron Man 3, I guess it really does like I feel like almost all the Phase 2 movies, but Iron Man 3 like mostly like shows like the aftermath of going through like a big like almost of a pretty much a big war like Iron Man out of everyone and I'm pretty sure Steve Rogers as well, suffered through PTSD after that after that war. So it was to me Iron Man 3 is fine in showing like the realism behind like the aftermath of a major war, especially a world-ending one.
Yeah, I think I like that aspect. I wish they dwelt on it more. And I'll get into that for things for Endgame when we go back and cover this movie in a little bit again. To me, Iron Man 3, it's not as bad as Iron Man 2. That one's still, to me,
Right.
the weakest Marvel movie we've gotten to date. But I'm not a huge fan of Iron Man 3, and that's primarily because of the one thing everyone always remembers about this movie, and that's the terrible Mandarin twist.
Right. That was a twist that I really was hoping for the Mandarin to like, Tony Stark to go up against like in a way magic, or at the same time like there's some iterations where the Mandarin's from another planet, but like it was a real letdown.
Yeah, I'd seen some reviews going into Iron Man 3 that there's going to be something about halfway through that people were either going to love or hate. And there was like a minor plot twist, like very small. I forget what it was. Something happens, and I was like, really? Is that it? That's kind of nothing. And then this twist comes up, and I was like, no, you can't do that. No, really? And my dad has made this great point to me a couple times, and I completely agree. If the Mandarin plot twist wouldn't have been nearly as bad had the actual villain of the movie been good. But that to me is the biggest problem with Iron Man 3 is it Aldrich Killian? Is that the name of the guy? He's so forgettable as the villain.
Right.
And they were doing such a good job with Ben Kingsley's Mandarin instead. I would much rather would have stuck with that.
They could have.
But, well, besides the Aldrich Killian thing, I hate how he can more or less just take like 45 minutes to build a suit nowadays, and that they fall apart like nobody's business. Like the first couple Iron Man movies, they get beat up, but they hold together. This, like, if someone blinks at them, the Iron Man suits fall apart.
Yeah, I guess it's his like creativity side. Like most people who are like in the art world or just like creating stuff overall like to like just have so many projects and want to get them out the way so fast. So like for the Mark 42 armor, I guess was like the end result after like so many of the armors, like in terms of like building out to like something that's like, okay, let me actually build something that could be useful, which is an armor that could be activated through your mind. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I would have been more okay with it had the suits had a purpose, but it felt like in the movie they were just kind of there for toy reasons, and it seemed very clear of we have a whole bunch of different suits. Buy them now at Walmart at $19.97.
Mm-hmm.
But Iron Man 3, to me, would be the weakest film in Phase 2 had not the next film in the MCU been Thor: The Dark World.
Oh my God.
Boy, this movie.
Not the greatest thing but not the greatest thing ever, but at least it gave us an Infinity Stone.
Yeah. In the pantheon of Marvel movies that we've gotten so far in the MCU, is this your least favorite, or is there one that you like less than Thor: The Dark World?
I mean, I dislike it in terms of the in terms of the story, the way it was written. Like, I feel like they were just like experimenting too much with it, in my opinion, or just like they just didn't know like how to properly introduce like the reality stuff. Like to me, like it really doesn't like showcase much of the reality stone of what it does. It's just saying like, oh yeah, if you get infected by the stone or like it's like power, you're gonna slowly die at some point, like how it was supposed to be with Jane Foster. I think that was the plot. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can't really remember too much about it. Now,
yeah, in terms of story, it wasn't that great to me at all.
Now, I've actually looked into this because I was curious. the reason why Thor: The Dark World feels like it was supposed to be something else, or the potential wasn't really quite lived up to, is because the movie was actually supposed to be something very, very different. Do you know who the original director of Thor: The Dark World was?
I do not.
Wonder Woman's Patty Jenkins.
Interesting.
Yeah, and apparently she left the project due to creative differences, and we got the directors that we ended up getting for Thor: The Dark World. She wanted to take it in a very much more different direction, and now I feel like Disney's probably kicking themselves going, maybe we should have listened to her because she did Wonder Woman, and we ended up with Thor: The Dark World.
Right.
So yeah, apparently
I mean,
they got very far in the creative process and then went on full Kathleen Kennedy and just got somebody else to do it instead that more aligned with what Marvel as a company was looking for from this movie.
right. I mean, the Wonder Woman director, she definitely not just in terms of story, but like definitely being respectful to the culture when it comes to Wonder Woman, like the Greek mythology stuff. So I feel like maybe there is supposed to be more like definite tributes to the Norse mythology side, and I really do enjoy the Greek and Norse pantheons a lot when it comes to story. Like if you haven't played it, but God of War really like pays so much tribute to the Norse pantheon, which is amazing.
Yeah. This movie was just so paint by the numbers. It was so safe. Maybe if it came out in the 90s or the 2000s, we'd like it more. It just felt like Iron Man 2 of it's just kind of there to exist. It's not.
Right.
If this is the worst the MCU has to offer, we're in a good place. Because by movie standards and by comic book movie standards, this movie really isn't bad. It's just so forgettable. And it's like the structure's fine. The story's okay. But for the MCU, okay isn't good enough. It's just fine.
Right.
It's not like Batman and Robin levels of bad or Catwoman levels of bad. It's just so forgettable.
Yeah, it really is. But at the same time, I feel like with some of the Phase 2 movies and maybe a little bit of the Phase 1s, like this world has been like 10 years in the making. And I could pretty much see like some of these movies are just like filler to like, to help with the build up to like, okay, this is why this is happening so far. But yeah, I agree with in terms of like Thor: The Dark World just be like not just like forgettable, but just really not that fantastic at all.
Yeah, and these whole like lead up to Endgame, you see like all these different flashbacks. Even seems like Marvel themselves is kind of aware of some of their misfires. Like they don't show a lot from Incredible Hulk, they don't show a lot from Iron Man 2, they don't show a lot from Thor: The Dark World. It's just kind of like they want us to forget those happened. They're like, those events happened, but don't remember that those movies happened, because the events of those three movies in particular don't really get mentioned a whole lot, especially in the larger continuity. But like you said earlier, this movie exists for one reason only, and that's to introduce the Reality Stone. That is it.
Right.
Now, the next MCU movie is a complete 180 in every sense. You remember which one came next?
Not exactly nuts, but tell me anyway.
Captain America: The Winter Soldier, the movie that single-handedly changed my opinion of Captain America.
Oh yes, that one I will say already is my absolute favorite out of all of for me, my favorite Captain America movie, but just like MCU overall.
I completely agree. It's still, even after Civil War, even after Infinity War, Winter Soldier is still by far my favorite MCU movie. But before I go into my long tangent about it, why do you like it so much?
I just like it because like it really does portray Captain America as someone who really like he not just like fights for like the what we call the like to many people the American dream, but like he really like does fight for the little guy and cares for like the littlest things and for of course his comrades, and he puts that above himself over all many things. And so when he like sees something like, no, this is bad, we gotta stop it, and everybody's like, but come on, Cap, no, this is bad, we gotta stop this.
Yeah, I thought the first one is fine. The first Captain America is definitely growing on me the more I watch it. But it was okay because Captain America had this moral code in a very different time. He still had that kind of World War II approach to everything, but still had a good moral center. he fit of the era that he was in. I like taking a character with that old school mentality and sticking him in to a modern setting. It was nice to see a black and white character exist in a gray world of, well, sometimes characters might think that they have to do bad things to do good in the world. And he's like, no, bad things are bad, and we don't compromise who we are. And that's why I love Captain America. I've said before that the key to a good Superman movie is essentially doing exactly what Captain America did, of take a character with old school morals and put them in a modern context and have them fight something they physically can't punch their way out of. I think that's the unspoken real reason of why Winter Soldier works so well is, yes, Cap is super strong, he's got all these great powers and everything, but he's facing a idea, essentially, of Hydra infiltrating S.H.I.E.L.D. He can't just punch his way out of that. That's a great concept of how do you beat that? What do you do to combat that? You can't use your hands to fight this. You have to think outside the box, and I think it does a great job of that.
Of course.
And also, they upgraded, to me, the other thing is they upgraded the action. Of the first Captain America is very much, it's by the same guy that did The Rocketeer, so it fits very much in that same line of kind of cheesy, over the top, but fun action. This, when he's like fighting Winter Soldier and everything else, it feels more like Jason Bourne of tight, hand-to-hand, handheld cinematography, but I just really enjoy that. The moment that I knew, I was just like, this is something very different. It's right at the beginning when he, Black Widow, and Crossbones are doing that secret mission to get S.H.I.E.L.D. agents back from the barge, and he's just laying waste to fools with that shield, but actually, like, fighting, showing that he has been studying, he's been trying to get better at combat instead of just throwing the shield.
Right. I mean, but Captain America, he still, despite like he even though he got his strength because of the super soldier serum, he still wants to learn and be a better, not just a better human being, but like just a better like soldier overall to be able to defend the people he cares about. But of course, protect himself from things that he thinks he'd be able to take on. And that's why I really love the choreography of the fighting and fighting against Winter Soldier, because he's essentially fighting an equal, even though Winter Soldier technically has a bit more experience since he keeps waking up and being put back to sleep. So that's just me.
Yeah. And for me personally, Winter Soldier has one of the saddest and hardest to watch scenes in the entire MCU. Sadder than Yondu dying, sadder than Spider-Man with the I don't feel so good, Mr. Stark. And that's when Cap visits Peggy in the hospital or her house or wherever she is. She's bedridden and she's got Alzheimer's. And so he's like talking to her and she's just like, you didn't get a chance to live your life. They had this really great heart-to-heart, which actually we're going to talk about in a little bit when we go into our segment about things to remember for Endgame. But they had this great emotional conversation. And then she like looks away or coughs for a second and the whole conversation resets. And she like sees Cap again and he realizes that her brain, like age has caught up to her, but it hasn't caught up to him. And he has to acknowledge that he really has to let her go at some point. Like that scene is just hard to watch for me.
It really is.
And then they make it even worse in Civil War. You're just like, oh man, Peggy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a reason why that was there. And we'll get into that later in this episode. So we have the high that is Captain America, the Winter Soldier. And they keep the streak going with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, man.
Before we get talking about Volume 2 next week, which is just sad. Joe, why do you love Guardians of the Galaxy? I'm assuming you do.
Of course I do. I really do, like, aside from, like, magic stuff when it comes to, like, people like Doctor Strange and all that, I really do like space stuff. Space is amazing, and I think the director for Guardians of the Galaxy, James Gunn, he really, like, really does, like, good when it comes to like the cosmic stuff, the cosmic world of space, and I really do just like the humor overall with the characters, like being so different and yet be able to work together when it comes down to it. Yeah,
I think for me it's the characters and the humor. Like it just works. You buy everybody's characters. You buy a raccoon voiced by Bradley Cooper. You buy a tree voiced by Vin Diesel, which I've been saying it since Iron Giant. Vin Diesel is a very underappreciated voice actor. Underappreciated voice actor, I mean. I still think Iron Giant is his best performance he's ever given, but I remember seeing the first Guardians with my dad in theaters, and the moment I knew I was going to love this movie, and I was like, this is something I have never seen before, is when Star-Lord puts the headphones on, and he starts listening to music in the temple, and then they just flash on the screen in this biggest font as possible, Guardians of the Galaxy, while this awesome music plays. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I immediately can't get enough of it. And that tone just fit, and it kept going throughout the movie, and it's just like, this is great. My only complaint was I wanted more of the Nova Corps, and I feel like we might get it eventually, but I love Guardians, whether it was the great color palette, its unique aesthetics, the characters, the humor. It just all works for me. Also, it just made us all realize Batista's great as Drax, and he's moved on to other projects. I'm just so happy to see him succeed. He's hysterical as Drax.
He definitely is. And when it comes down to back to just Guardians of the Galaxy overall, like the fact that it's like, to me, space is like timeless. So like the 80s vibe because of Star-Lord, you know, with the music and all that, it's like it fits so well with the world, which made me like it even more. Is like there are some of the songs I have on my playlist just because of that movie, and just like I really like this. This is a jam.
Yeah, I remember when Guardians of the Galaxy came out. I bought the CD of Awesome Mix Volume 1, and it has stayed in my car since that movie came out 5 years ago. It was 5 years ago, man. That's weird. It's weird to think that was that long ago.
I know, it's crazy, but at the same time, it's like you have so much fun with these movies, like time just flies by because you're just in anticipation, like what's going to happen next, and then you look back like, oh, right, Iron Man came out. Like with Homecoming, like a reference that Happy made when they pulled out, you know, when they talked about Peppers, like, I've been holding this since 2008. I was like, oh, I was a child.
Yeah. I think for Guardians, it was just this introduction to the MCU is going to do weird stuff now. But we know how to do the weird stuff right, so you still enjoy it. You can enjoy your raccoons and your trees and your blue assassin ladies, but you're still going to care about these characters. The only downside, I think, for Guardians is the villain. But then again, Marvel had terrible villains for a while there. They're finally starting to correct that. I thought Ronan was very forgettable. Not as bad as Malekith in Thor: The Dark World. And I thought the opening sequence in Guardians when, like, his mom's dying, I thought that was done really oddly. Like, I didn't understand the emotion that they were going for in that scene.
I guess I just wanted to get Star-Lord's origin out the way soon, and so that way we could just, you know, get straight to the point in terms of like not just the Infinity Stone, but like just like building up the team to see how well they would be in the future, if they would be part of Infinity War or maybe Endgame. But I guess Infinity War was the plan with them. Yeah,
I hadn't thought about it that way, but when you put it that way, I can absolutely see that. That's a good point of just kind of, here's his origin. All right, now you know his origin. Let's move on to better things, the more exciting things, like Batista, etc., etc. I didn't really like what they did to Batista for Volume 2, making him just the comedic relief, but I still, the first Guardians, I think it's in my top 5 favorite Marvel movies. If not, it's like 6, just barely out of that top 5. I love Guardians. It's a pleasant surprise, and now the world knows who they are. They're a bunch of a-holes.
They definitely are.
Now, this one is a bit of a controversial movie in that people are really on the fence about it. Some people I know really, really enjoy it. I initially hated it. Now I'm somewhere in the middle of, it's fine, but it's not nearly as good as the first one. And that's Avengers Age of Ultron. I remember Heather and I saw this in theaters, and we both walked out of it going, that was not very good. I've gone back and rewatched it since, and it has gotten better, but it is nowhere near as good as the first one. And you can tell director Joss Whedon wanted to do some things, but they like forced him to include certain elements that you can tell he didn't want to include.
Right.
What do you think about Age of Ultron? I don't know if we've ever talked about this movie in particular.
When it comes to Age of Ultron, like I enjoyed it in terms like because it's another Avengers movie. I get to see like the whole team together, but like there's just like so many things in terms of like I guess pleasing the fans in terms of, like here's the Hulkbuster armor. Oh, hang on, Wakanda's a thing. Oh, here's I guess your two favorite mutants. Oh, they're not mutants. They got their powers from an Infinity Stone. I'm just like, okay, but at least we got Ultron, right? Yeah, you got Ultron, cool.
Yeah, a not very threatening Ultron though. I was never a fan of this version of Ultron. Ultron in the comics is pretty cool. This one, I was never once afraid of him. Maybe it was the voice.
No, he did sound like dull, like he didn't want to do this, but like I guess he was like acting like a regular robot with AI, or it's just like humans are imperfect, and that's always been his thing. But like the other Ultron, despite his voice being more robotic and like definitely being a robot, I feel like he just had more like ambition. I want to say I'm not sure, but like I just find the ones in the comics better than this one.
Oh, absolutely. The one in the comics, I envisioned the voice being more threatening, more metallic, more robotic. This one, I can kind of see what they're going with of this like smarmy, sarcastic villain because he was created by the smarmiest and the sarcastic one of the Avengers, with Iron Man being his creator. But yeah, I just never really bought into Ultron. And for me, Age of Ultron tries to do too much. It's the Iron Man 2 of the Avengers movies of it's just kind of here to hold people over until Infinity War, but also sets up way too much. Like you said, they mentioned Wakanda. They introduced the twins. Well, by the end of the movie, just Scarlet Witch. But then you have that really random side tangent where Thor goes to the magical hot tub so he can figure out what happens in his next movie. You've got building tension between Captain America and Iron Man, setting up Civil War. There's too much setting up for the sake of a story. And I feel like Marvel hasn't gone this overboard since. So I feel like they did learn their lesson from Age of Ultron. You can't put this much stuff in just to set up things for later. And Joss Whedon does an admirable job of trying to balance everything as best as he can. But even then, you had high expectations with Avengers, and this just... It's not bad. It's just middle of the road. It's not nearly as good as it had the potential to be. However, there's still some parts of it that are excellent. From what I've read, originally Disney wanted to cut out the whole Hawkeye family farm thing. To me, that's the best thing in the whole movie.
Oh yeah, it shows that even like heroes, even a hero could have like a definite normal life. Like for example, him, Spider-Man, and a few others. Like it was good. It was nice to see. Like plus, even a hero needs a break from time to time to like think like, what are we gonna do next? We need a safe haven so we can actually think instead of just like right there in the moment, or we'll keep making mistakes.
Yeah, it humanized Hawkeye, who admittedly was the weakest link in Avengers, primarily because he was a mind-controlled zombie for most of the first Avengers movie before he just comes back and shoots arrows. This one gave his character depth. To me, in my family, Age of Ultron is my mom's favorite Avengers movie, I think, after the first one. I can't tell. I can't remember if she likes this one or the first Avengers more because of Hawkeye's family. She likes seeing that family aspect of just like, he's got a home and kids. And I think that's the humanity that you need these characters to have, especially Hawkeye, who's missing that depth. But that's obviously absolutely going to come into play for things you need to know for Endgame, because looking ahead, I don't think the outlook looks pretty good for his family in Endgame, but we'll get to there in just a little bit. Any other thoughts on Age of Ultron before we move on to the last film of Phase 2?
Not really. I feel like the only thing that I really didn't like was like the loss of Quicksilver. Like, sure, he did a noble thing, but just like he is definitely faster than a bullet. I don't think he should have done that, but oh well, that was their loss. I feel like he could have been fleshed out more like Scarlet Witch.
Which, admittedly, Scarlet Witch doesn't have that much depth to her in the first one. She only got depth in the subsequent films. I didn't care either way if Hawkeye died. No,
Right.
not Hawkeye. If Quicksilver died because they didn't get us to care about him, he's like the
Right.
teenager in a slasher movie. He's just kind of there to die, so they don't bother giving him that much depth. They try, but it just doesn't really work.
Right.
I'm glad they haven't resurrected him because it's the ongoing joke in Marvel that no one actually stays dead. Unless you're Quicksilver, apparently. And I'm actually okay with that. If some people have to stay dead in order for there to be
Yeah.
stakes.
Right.
Now, this somehow is not the last film in Phase 2, canonically. For some reason, the final film in Marvel Phase 2, I don't know why, is Ant-Man. I don't know why it wasn't Ant-Man then Age of Ultron. Maybe you'd have too many people going, why wasn't Ant-Man in Age of Ultron? But whatever. Ant-Man is the last film in Phase 2. What do you think about Ant-Man?
I mean, I feel like when it comes for building up to Endgame and all that, I feel like they want to get as much like heroes who will like make sense in terms of their abilities. And in terms of Ant-Man, overall, I enjoy Ant-Man a lot. But like I guess the way they introduced him like last second was just like here's another hero and he has pretty cool powers. Let's see how well he does, especially since by what they show is that he was in prison for most of the time, so he probably was in prison during the entire time of the Age of Ultron stuff, and maybe through the Avengers stuff. Got I don't know how exactly long. I think they said 2 years, 3 years. I don't know, but yeah, they're just like, here's Ant-Man. All right, we're using Scott Lang instead of Hank Pym. Let's see how this goes.
Is it just me, or does it seem like the MCU hasn't cared about the Ant-Man franchise as much as it's cared about other franchises like Cap, Thor, Captain Marvel, or Black Panther? He just kind of feels like he's there.
He is just there, but at the end of the day, for me, I really do enjoy the Ant-Man movies because like it's just like here you go, here's a Randy. It's kind of like not definitely a different tone from the Marvel Netflix movies, I mean shows, but like here's a hero. They're pretty cool, and it's just that Ant-Man was the one chosen to be on the big screen, while those other heroes ended up being TV shows. But yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, Ant-Man was the first Marvel movie I didn't see in theaters just because it didn't really hook me. And I was just like, I'll catch it when I see it when it comes on DVD. And I did. And I think it's fine. I had a lot of people who were just like, oh, you gotta see Ant-Man. It's great. It's unique. It's different. And I saw it and I was like, it's okay. It's a heist movie. It's fine, but it's not as great of a heist movie as like the Ocean's movies. I thought it was just okay. And I think both the Ant-Man movies are really, really skippable, except for one key detail that we'll get into for things you should know for Endgame.
Right.
But by and large, I think Paul Rudd is a good Ant-Man. I think the movies are good. They're fine. They're not the best, but if you had some skippable movies in the MCU, I think they're Ant-Man because they feel like
Right.
they exist in the same universe as the MCU, but they don't impact the overall story like a Civil War does or an Avengers does. It just kind of feels like it's there to introduce you to Ant-Man, who's going to just be a supporting character later, like a Falcon or a Hawkeye.
Right.
Now, any other Ant-Man thoughts before we do our best and worst?
No, I think I'm good with what I said about Ant-Man.
Now, I think we've already kind of made it clear, but we'll go into further detail. Our best of Marvel Phase 2, and probably the best of any of the MCU movies, for both of us, I feel pretty confident saying it's Winter Soldier.
Oh yeah,
Winter Soldier is just
Definitely.
fantastic.
it really is. I feel like was it the first movie? Was it Russo Brothers that did that one as well?
I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to bring that up later, but I completely forgot. So thank you for bringing it back. Yes, Winter Soldier was the first movie that Joe and Anthony Russo, the guys that did Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame, Winter Soldier was their first movie, and I still think it's their best movie. These guys kind of turned the ship in a certain direction for Marvel, and for the better, I think. Of the movies that they've helmed are really well balanced, are some of the best in the MCU. Like I said, Civil War, Infinity War. I think Endgame is going to be one of the best movies in the MCU. They know how to balance things really well, but they also know how to tell a Titans-focused story, which is what Winter Soldier is.
Right.
And yeah, go for it.
No, it's just I really am impressed by just how well they were able to you know, focus on the characters that they use, and just the story overall, and the proper balance of all things, like you said. You know, it's just really just like every single time I see. So I mean, I haven't seen any of their previous work outside the Marvel stuff, but like so far the Marvel stuff that they've done is just like I'm just amazed like how well the story and choreography is for the MCU.
Yeah, these guys actually came from a TV background, if I remember correctly. So it is amazing that they've been able to do this really long-term storytelling with their films in the MCU, considering they come from a TV episodic background. I think they had worked on Community for a little bit. But going back to Winter Soldier, I think there's going to be a lot more elements to Winter Soldier that'll be important for Endgame than we think, because their first movie in the MCU was Winter Soldier, and now they're closing it out with Endgame. I would not be surprised if there's more elements from Winter Soldier in Endgame than we think, but we'll get into that in a little bit. And as we said earlier, pretty confident saying our least favorite film in Phase 2 is Thor: The Dark World. Is that right?
Yeah, you're right.
What is it about it, Joe, in case we didn't make it clear earlier? Why is Thor: The Dark World so much of an eye roller?
I mean, to me again, like looking like from what I can remember, it really is just there to like fill the gap a bit, to like, you know, give us a bit of a, you know, taste of like, okay, here's here's something else that we're doing for the eventual Infinity War. Like, here's an Infinity Stone. There you go. Like, this is what we can do with the Reality Stone. Bye. So that's just me.
Yeah, it's just forgettable. The humor, to me, doesn't really work. It's not like Guardians level humor. It's not Winter Soldier level of storytelling.
Nope.
It's just okay. When your annoying sidekick character gets an annoying sidekick of her own, you may have a problem there. It's just... But by and large, Phase 2, it's got its hits. It's got some mess. But overall, it's a pretty solid phase. I don't know if it's as good as Phase 1, but pretty good holdover to get us to Phase 3, which we will cover later. Now, we'll go through all the films of Phase 2. However, this time, we'll be pointing out specifically the details that we think you may need to know going into Avengers Endgame. So, for Iron Man 3, I think you guys will really want to remember that Iron Man's kind of messed up in the head after Avengers. So Iron Man 3 was the first one to really show his PTSD, and he's got some trauma. Now, admittedly, the movie itself doesn't even really bring it up for the whole time, and some other movies since then don't really bring it up. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of the panic and the nervousness of Iron Man in Endgame, especially now that some things that he had visions of have come true.
True. It actually has to some degree. I don't know what the true capabilities of the Mind Stone when Scarlet Witch got the powers, but like showing him what he fears the most and somewhat coming true to a degree. It's just like, you know, I think it was right to really show that aspect of Tony. Like, he's afraid. One of the reasons for Age of Ultron is like he just wanted to build a shield, but because he was rushing it and like just too scared and focusing on just like the consequences, he failed to like try to see like the silver lining in it all, and which just keeps trying to tone that in Age of Ultron, but as well as a bit in Civil War.
Oh yeah, there's quite a bit from Age of Ultron that I have in my notes about things that you should remember for Endgame. Thor: The Dark World, there's only really one thing that I could think of. Two things. What the Reality Stone does, it just kind of morphs reality around you. We saw the effects of it in Infinity War, but just kind of remember that Thor: The Dark World introduced the Reality Stone. And the thing that Josh put in the notes, which I think is absolutely right to bring up, is that in Thor: The Dark World, Loki tricks us into thinking he was killed and then steals the throne from Odin. So we think Loki died in Infinity War. I 100% think he's dead. He's not faking it, but Josh wants us to remember that Loki has tricked us numerous times before, so he could be faking his death. I think in Infinity War, they kind of went out of the way to be like, no, this is the real Loki, and Thanos even says something along the lines of, no resurrections this time, right after he snaps Loki's neck. So I feel like he's actually dead. That being said, Josh is right. I think it is a very good point to remember that Loki has faked his death before.
Right.
Which...
plus... No, it's just that with going on that with Loki, it's just like I feel like maybe he could have like planned something. Like he probably could have done something to the Tesseract, or when he grabbed Thanos' gauntlet, maybe he added something to the gauntlet that would activate with somebody else that knows magic, because he already has come in contact with Doctor Strange, and maybe he felt that maybe Doctor Strange could see what he planted, and maybe that's what helps with the future that Doctor Strange saw of them winning.
Yeah, I don't want Loki to come back to life because we've seen this so many times before, but it is something to keep in the back of your mind. Captain America, the Winter Soldier, has, like I said, a few more things than I think people are remembering that will be very important for Endgame. I think there's going to be quite a bit from Winter Soldier that you want to be cognizant of. For me, there's one thing in particular that Heather and I have been going back and watching some of the important Marvel movies to be aware of. So when we were watching Winter Soldier, more or less just because I enjoy it, there's a line that Peggy Carter says that I was like, oh, that right there, that could be the answer. And to the film's credit, they even use that same line in one of the trailers for Endgame, one of the TV spots that they've been showing. So I wrote it down just to make sure I had it right. So when she's on the bed and Cap visits her, she says something along the lines of, none of us can go back. Sometimes the best we can do is to start over. So, is that a hint to the fact that maybe they'll be going back in time and more or less starting the MCU over? Or will Cap go back in time and live out his life with Peggy now?
That does open a lot of... that does raise a lot of questions in terms of like where... if time travel really does come into play, because, you know, the Time Stone definitely was the one that they struggled to go after the most. And I feel like if looking close into certain details when it comes to set photos, and I guess seeing in the trailer, they have like these weird devices on their hands, which I assume is for time travel, or to at least like not be affected too much by time. But either A, like probably Cap would go back to live out his life, or B, they would go back to the Battle of New York to ensure that the Tesseract is like definitely out of somebody's reach, or at least put somewhere a little bit more secured out of Thanos' side, giving it to Doctor Strange, because Doctor Strange was the movie was set before the Battle of New York, and they already know Stephen Strange, and they just was like, oh, here you go, protect this with your life along with the Time Stone, or send it into a different dimension, whatever. But yeah, I feel like time travel would come into play because of that line.
Yeah, that line to me, it's just too on the nose to ignore of, wow, you really hit the nail on the head for that. And it's the same guys that did that movie that did Endgame. So long-term planning on their part if this line ends up being true. I genuinely think Peggy Carter is going to be in this movie in some capacity. However, there's some other details that are given away in Winter Soldier that I think foreshadow things to come, especially for Endgame. In every single Captain America movie, but they go out of their way to have a shot of it in Winter Soldier, Bucky holds Cap's shield, foreshadowing that maybe he takes over for Captain America. There's that great shot in Winter Soldier where they're doing the hand-to-hand fight, and he more or less has the shield in front of him in like hero pose, like a Captain America pose, except he's got the shield. Did the same thing in the first one with Bucky in the train. He uses Cap's shield and shoots the guy. And in the third one, they're fighting Iron Man while tossing the shield back and forth. Every single Captain America movie, Bucky uses the shield in some capacity for at least a little bit. To me, that just foreshadows that he's going to be Captain America come Endgame. By the end of it, I mean.
Right. I mean, even though like Bucky has always protected Steve, and when he was like skinny Steve, you know, after he becomes Captain America and ends up getting more training benefits because he wasn't on the field for a while, despite the shows that he did for the Army. You know, I'm pretty sure he had more combat training and was able to train Bucky. And probably when he had his when he got his circular shield, he probably during his howling how in Commando days he probably like on the side like taught Bucky how to control the shield because maybe Bucky seemed interested. Like, Steve, how can you use your shield like that? Can you teach me how to do that? I didn't think trashlets could do that. You know.
Interesting thought. And then lastly, from Winter Soldier, one of the main villains from Winter Soldier is revealed to be Armin Zola from the first Captain America. And when he comes back on the computer screen, he says something along the lines of "things from the past are never truly dead." Could this imply that we get some villains from previous Marvel movies returning? We had Red Skull show up in Infinity War. Could this be the case, like the Rise of Skywalker trailer, where some things can't stay dead forever and they return? Or if they do go back in time, that means some villains haven't died yet.
There are some villains that are still have yet to been like touched upon in terms of like the big scale stuff, but also like the minimal scale stuff in terms of like setting up for future events. Like let's see, for me right now, Spider-Man, for example, like they could, not since they're getting to the cosmic stuff, they could, you know, introduce Madam Web to help Spider-Man help Spider-Man realize his true destiny of becoming a like great hero, because over the course of time in many comics, like Spider-Man is seen as a great hero. Even Cable says that to Wade Wilson, that Spider-Man died as one of the greatest heroes of all time. So like Madam Web introducing, you know, probably building up to Secret Wars or the battle against Galactus, who knows? But like that's one example I can think of when it comes to like characters that haven't introduced yet.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see if they bring anybody back from the past. It might be distracting, but if they do it right, like the Red Skull thing, it could be a great callback. Another one that I think has more elements that'll be in Endgame than we may think is the first Guardians movie. This is where more or less where they first introduce the stone's origins of like, hey, there's these things called Infinity Stones. Yes, they'd already been implied, and there's already fan theories before this, but this is the first movie that more or less out and out said, these are Infinity Stones. This is what the eventual goal will be, the end game, so to speak, with the collector telling the stone story. But I think something very, very important to know is at the end when they defeat Ronan the Accused, Star-Lord catches the Infinity Stone, and then they all hold hands to more or less hold its power. So the stones, with a strong enough individual, can be held in someone's hand. I read a great theory that I'm starting to believe in, that at the end of the movie we'll see each of the original 6 Avengers wielding a stone on their own that most represents them. So Captain America, the man out of time, will have the time stone. The mind stone will go to Iron Man because he's the smartest. The power stone will go to Hulk. The reality stone will go to Black Widow because she's a spy and she can disguise her own reality. The soul stone will go to Hawkeye because he's the one that's the most invested with a family on the line. And then the space stone goes to Thor because he can teleport anywhere in the universe and he has the most galactic experience. And maybe all of them hold a stone and do something together and sacrifice themselves, like the end of the first Guardians, except this time they don't make it out. I like that theory a lot. So just know if a strong enough individual is there, they can hold the stone.
Right.
And just remember the Guardians ending and where stones come from. What the story is with them, at least.
Yeah, I feel like I find that theory to be like very possible as one of the possible like endings of what could happen in Endgame. But then like going back when it comes to Peggy Carter's line, when it comes to like, you know, nothing's ever gone, and going back to returning villains like Red Skull, I feel like Red Skull might come into play in some weird way in terms of maybe a stinger when like maybe the Infinity Stones will like scatter across the universe again, maybe, and he ends up with the Time Stone because one of the iteration of the skull I've noticed is the Cosmic Skull, and his brain gets fried because he couldn't control one of the stone's power, and the Time Stone helped them revert back to before he interacted with one of the stones. So maybe he might end up with the Time Stone and therefore going back to the mindset where he's in full control and now he knows what to properly do next time when he faces off against his enemies.
Yeah, there's a lot to be gleaned out of Guardians. Also, remember the backstory for Nebula and Thanos, I feel like they will have a very big connection for Endgame. They already have the familial connection, but for those of you who are unfamiliar, Nebula plays a huge part in the original Infinity Gauntlet comic arc. So look for her to have a big presence in Endgame for one. Moving on to Age of Ultron, there's quite a bit in Age of Ultron as well. This is the first time in the MCU we get reference of Endgame. So after Ultron is created, all the Avengers are together, and Iron Man says that thing that you mentioned earlier about trying to put a shield around the world. And he's like, that up there, that's the Endgame. And I'm like, oh, is that something? Or is it just a name drop that kind of keeps continuity? What do you think, Joe?
I feel like it's just probably a name drop if it was to help build up the universe. If that was Josh Whedon's idea of the final like movie for the title for Infinity War Saga, but I feel like he was probably just mentioning like, you know, his fear, like the Endgame fear, which is whatever is up there in space. Like it's still at that point in time they don't know who the heck Thanos is, but he knows by what he saw in the first Avengers movie, like there's more out there bigger than them, bigger than the Earth. So that's pretty much him just, you know, showing what he's afraid of, and that is, you know, what's out there. And at that point in time, he feels like we're not strong enough even all together. So that's what I take out of it.
Piggybacking off your thought perfectly, actually, is that scene where Scarlet Witch gives Tony a vision where all of them are in space and all of them are dead. Like Cap's shield is broken, and Cap says something like, "Why didn't you save us?" So I think that could absolutely be foreshadowing to Endgame of like all the Avengers go to fight Thanos and he just destroys all of them. Or even if they win, be like, "Hey, I can't undo the snap." That could be something that's stuck with him, or just be foreshadowing to that all the original Avengers die. But going back to that scene where he says that's the end game, there's a really important line in there that I almost forgot about until now. The Iron Man says something about the lines of, "What happens if we lose?" Then Cap says, "Then we do it together." And I feel like that line in particular, that whole mantra of what happens if we fail, then we do it as a team, is going to come back in Avengers of, okay, we've got nothing left. We've got to do this as a team. We win or we lose as a team. And I feel like that'll come back into play in a big way, as will Tony's visions of everyone dying.
Right. There is a chance that this could just lead into them maybe sacrificing themselves, or probably all retiring to where they pass the torch to the new set, because there's always a new set of Avengers throughout the comics, and with either a reiteration of the same characters or just new ones overall, like, and to bring the TV show Avengers Assemble, like Black Panther or Captain Marvel ends up being the leaders of the new Avengers, with Ms. Marvel and along with Ant-Man and Wasp, etc. So like there could be a chance that the original six will definitely stand down, and the MCU will just focus on the new team until maybe the next like full on Avengers movie. The original six may come back in a way that we would never expect.
Maybe in time for Galactus in a couple years.
Galactus, we would need everyone, definitely.
Now, there's one last thing in Age of Ultron, and this could just be me hoping and wishing for a long time now, of something that was first teased in Age of Ultron that I really hope pays off in Endgame. And that is, after the party, where we first meet Ultron at the end of it, there's a party that all the Avengers are having, and everyone's gone home, so it's just the main characters. And Thor puts his hammer on the table, and everyone tries to take turns lifting it. Iron Man can't do it. He can't even lift it when he's got the Iron Man glove on. Hulk tries to lift it. Cap tries to lift it, and he can't lift it. But he's able to make it budge like an inch or two. And Thor has that panicked look in his expression in his face. I think in Endgame, I've said this for a while now, I think Cap is using Thor's hammer.
I feel like he could like just to make everyone like happy and squeal. I would like to see that too. I would not be against it at all. But like
It
I feel
has to
like
be the right scene, obviously, but
the right moment.
yeah, I've seen someone suggest that maybe Thanos takes away Cap's powers, and it's only when Cap stands up to Thanos, even without powers, that the hammer's like, "You are now worthy." Like Fox from Gryffindor, it's just like, "I'll come to you when you need me most."
Exactly.
But just let Cap lift the hammer just once, and maybe Thor dies. Cap picks up the hammer in honor of his fallen friend, and then that's when he screams, "Avengers Assemble." Or maybe I'm just fan casting here. That's another thing that gets teased in Age of Ultron is Cap finally saying "Avengers Assemble," and I need him to say it in Endgame.
So at least one person has to say it because they've been teasing it, I think, since the first movie and on the first Avengers. I'm just like, please, just say it. You're so close to saying it, but
They've
and
never
going back
said
to
it.
like,
They've never said it, and I need them to at least once before all the original members say goodbye.
I feel like this movie will be it, and they will say it finally because they keep teasing it.
They better. Now, lastly, we have Ant-Man, which we've said there's not a whole lot from Ant-Man except for one detail that's going to be really huge, we think, and that is the quantum realm.
Mm-hmm.
So, in Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, you can go to this place, and it's like beyond the microscopic level of incredibly tiny. You'll never be picked up. But that place exists beyond space and time. It's its own thing. Maybe they can't go back in time, but they can using the quantum realm. Maybe they use Ant-Man's technology, and that's why they're wearing the white and red suits, to send them back in time to undo everything that's happened.
Right. So I feel like that may be like, who knows? I feel like from what I heard from like other theorists and reviews for some people, I feel like the timeline, the way it's going to work is like the beginning is like trying to attempt to go after Thanos, end up finding Tony, and decide to come back after realizing how strong he really is. And then after defeating him, actually, the final phase is to like try to figure out how to get everyone back. If it turns out the snap is like you can't bring back anyone, because how can you? What can you do to actually? Because the snap is like, I don't know how was like a thought, but like how do you like undo death rather than like actually like just like cause it? I don't know. That's just me. Like maybe like the quantum realm act is like a way to like how we're going to bring everyone back, or at least how to like make sure that Infinity Gauntlet doesn't get, because Infinity Gauntlet gets somewhat destroyed after the snap. So that's the question there. How is it going to bring everyone back if Thanos uses it again in battle?
Yeah, I think Quantum Realm is going to absolutely play a huge part in this movie. So I refresh yourself with the Quantum Realm, with Ant-Man, what he's capable of. Yeah, that's the main takeaway. I think the Quantum Realm was going to play a huge factor. Oh, also, going back to Winter Soldier really quick, before we wrap things up, just a little detail I've noticed in the trailer of, there's one little TV spot or something that's Hawkeye, Rocket Raccoon, Captain Marvel, Rhodey, Captain America, Black Widow. I think it's those characters. And Hawkeye, no, not Hawkeye, Rocket Raccoon is piloting the Benatar. He's like, who's never been to space before? And a couple of them raise their hands. He's like, oh, you're going to have a fun time. And Cap is wearing his Winter Soldier uniform, which I thought was very interesting because that's the only movie he's ever worn that blue and the gray. Right. I mean, because that's my favorite Captain America suit that he's worn on screen so far. I love that suit. So I immediately was going, wait, why are you wearing your Winter Soldier outfit? Is Winter Soldier's timeline involved with this somehow?
It could be just like it's probably his most modern. He doesn't want to wear the Avenger suit. Maybe like that's his most modern suit, or like he just had ready on standby because I guess they just wanted something that had like the star showing, because. But at the same time, it could be just another Russo brothers edit because they even admitted like they purposely actually film scenes intentionally meant for trailers and edits only meant for trailers, and then like tricking us at the end. Like they really got me good. They really got us good, making us think in the first Infinity War trailer that Hulk was going to be in Wakanda, but it turns out to be the Hulkbuster armor. So, and Thanos only having 2 stones when he gets to Wakanda. No, he had all 5 or 5 at the moment before he got Vision Stone.
Yeah. Any last minute thoughts or things to remember about Marvel Phase 2?
I mean, to remember about Phase 2, I guess overall it really is like it answers like some questions of like why characters are there, as well as it also like giving us more like the Infinity Stones of like, you know, this is their purpose, or like, you know, how is Thanos easily getting these stones, or how did he get the Infinity Gauntlet? Answer is like he probably was always watching. Like I'm pretty sure he knew where the Space Stone was at all times, even after giving it to Ronan, the Accuser. So like he knew the Nova Corps would grab it. Like here it is, I got it back. But yeah, that's just like the Phase 2 movies help understand the purpose of the Infinity Stones, and how, of course, like brings in like the purpose of some characters, not all.
Yeah. If Phase 1 introduced our characters and got everyone, like, was lead up for Avengers, Phase 2 is baby steps towards Infinity War and Endgame. Not quite of this is the direction we're going, but like small steps just to start planting the seeds of the direction we're going. It's got its highs, it's got its lows, but as a whole, it's got some really good movies out there. I don't think Phase 2 is as strong as Phase 1, but it's still a very strong phase, and there's a lot of information in Phase 2 that you may want to remember for Endgame. Well, what do you guys think about Marvel Phase 2? Let us know. And as always, if you like what you hear and you want to hear more, subscribe to us on whatever audio platform you're listening to us on, whether that be iTunes, Google Podcasts, or YouTube. And as always, be sure to check us out on the main YouTube channel at Uncharted Media. And as always, stay sharp, movie guys and gals.